Hi, my name is Andrew and welcome to a slightly different board game updates. Board game updates. When I finished the fishing updates, Tin and I went on a small exploration journey on thinking, what will this game actually be like? I mean, sure, we have the fishing mechanics ready, the fishing AI, some basic enemies, bullet logic, and hook mechanics, but we're still missing something crucial. I had a vague idea on what the game should entail, both from a flavor and lore, as well as how the progression should be like. But I never put in detail, and I feel like this week, especially since we finished fishing finally, it is time to think about what are our next steps. While doing that, Tin and I have worked really well together and our communication has been top-notch, but our working structure has been quite chaotic. So in this video, I felt that it was a good time for me to share with you my experience with collaborating with others, as well as sharing some tips so that you can have a clear and better experience with forming and collaborating with others. But before we dive into that, it is the YouTube Gods ritual and a subscriber perk, especially from me to you. A completely unnecessary thumbs up. Wow, Andrew truly knows no limits. A thumbs up given for no reason? Such generosity. I know. If you liked your own personal, unnecessary yet heartfelt thumbs up, consider subscribing. You might even get a second one. Now, how do you work collaboratively? I've split my ideas in a few bullet sections. 1. Clarifying roles. Now, before you begin, it is best to define roles clearly. It doesn't have to be specific, but setting up roles can help each other communicate better. Why? Because this way, you and others have a clear way to give calls to the positions that you're in. Then, you need to make sure that you set shared goals. Like, what is everyone's goal? What is the game's vision? The tone, the scope? What does success look like for you? It is important to align your expectations with your teammates. What is the timeline and work pace? Tin and I have different work paces. I, for example, am full-time on this project, but Tin has a job, and while there are times where he's more free, I have to set up expectations for myself and for him to know that sometimes things can get quite busy. And so we need to make sure that when valuing someone's work, we take that into consideration. 2. Communication multiply in numbers. Here's a visual example of how communication looks like for a group of 3 people. You can see that there are 3 lines of communication, one passing to another. But what happens when we add one more person to the group? Suddenly, how many lines of communication can you see? From 3 lines of communication, we can go to 6. That's a huge growth from just having one more person to be added to the team. And so communication becomes more difficult, like passing information. Not everyone might be available, and so text and updates will become more preferred. Of course, there are ways to shorten the lines of communication, like you can have sub-roles and other, but at the end, what matters more is the communication styles of each individual. Some people prefer talking through emails or texts, while others prefer talking in a voice or face-to-face. Also, this depends on the subject as well, but there are advantages and disadvantages to both. I personally am fond to talking face-to-face and on voice calls, because I feel like it has more human approach. At the end of the day, we're all people and we're making game together. And sure, while I care very much about efficiency and things to not get lost in the voice, it is important to me to feel like I'm part of the team and that I feel safe and valued. And that might get lost when sometimes it's in a text. But my number 1 absolute tip when it comes to communication is just be honest. Expressing your concerns and disagreements can be difficult sometimes, and especially if you are not the type of person that's confrontational. When something isn't working, address it now, not 3 months later. This is important with any type of relationship, really. And that is something that my partner Anna and I learned throughout our relationship as well. If we are bothered by something, we shouldn't internalize it and then act cold towards each other. Emotions are information, and it isn't fair for the other person, and it isn't helping any of us in reaching our goal. And so we always strive to address something if something is off. So when something happens that needs to be addressed in the group project, be honest, be kind, and look forward and always ask, what can I do now to achieve my goal? 3. Documentation saves sanity. Of course, create your freaking GDD that nobody's gonna read it apart from you. But it is important mostly for you anyways. It will improve your ability to remember and visualize your game idea, fall back to previous works, and overall it's just a great tool to not divert yourself too far and fall into a scope creep or game identity crisis. Even though, of course, even if you do all that, you're still at risk. Version control is everything. I use Github Desktop, and probably not the right way, but Tin and I can see the current and previous versions of the game at all times. And I feel like I don't need to talk much about this as many other devs have covered it. There's a video I remember Rob Lang made about version control, so do consider to check it out. Track tasks and progress. Many people confuse task tracking with GTD, but not you and I. Documentation is vision keeping, task tracking is progress keeping. They don't have to be in the same place, although they can, but I use Miro for documentation and Trello for task tracking. There are many other softwares available as well. I'll link some down below. Now let's get dirty with part 4. Time, money, and commitment. I feel like this is the part that most devs on YouTube don't really talk about when forming a project or when working on a project together. And you see, I think that's also some of the reasons why projects sometimes can fall into pitfalls so fast if not handled early. Speaking from experience at least, you need to talk about the compensation early. How are all the teammates benefiting from this project? Revenue share? Upfront pay? Hybrid? Who owns and who has the final call? Avoid ownerships of two, as you can easily get stuck when you have an opposing opinion. Jonas Tyroller talked about it in one of his videos for exploration, and I recommend you check it out. But the point is to try avoid ambiguity and set expectations early. Have an agreement or a contract. It can even be informal at the beginning, but it's important to talk about these things. Don't let it pass until it's too late. And I know it sucks because it's like you're talking about divorce when you're getting married, but it is important for a healthy and strong relationship, especially if you're working on a game together for a long period of time. Number 5, feedback is wonderful. Opinions can be subjective, and so it's important to ask for iteration and not perfection. Be specific and be kind. Give reasons behind your opinions. Secondly, be aware that things change. If ideas don't work, adapt together. It's important to be flexible and not reactive. Lastly, let people and yourself own a piece. Artists make better art when they feel trusted, and that goes for any other roles as well. Number 6, legal stuff. Ew, disgusting, I know. Who the hell wants to do legal stuff? But you gotta eat your veggies. You see, IP is important. Make sure everybody knows who owns the IP. Who holds the rights to what? Do composers keep their music rights? Is the game co-owned? Make sure you plan for success, and most importantly also for failure. What happens if someone leaves mid-development? What happens if the game doesn't make a penny? Make sure to set everybody's expectations right. And of course, this is a no-brainer, but ask for credits. It's important to credit people properly. And finally, we have reached to the final part, 7. Be humane. Most of the time, working on a game development is tough and grindy. There's gonna be things that you hate, and it's gonna be important to celebrate small wins. New art drop? Celebrate that. We just finished the fishing prototype? Celebrate that one as well. And also, I don't mean to celebrate just with others. It's really important for you yourself to celebrate and to be kind to yourself when you pass a milestone, no matter how small it is. Patience is key. People get tired, stuck, or busy. Support always trumps pressure. And lastly, stay friends. Even when the project ends. A failed collaboration isn't a failed relationship. Stay professional and kind. I can say at least when Pini failed, my friendship with Giacomo really took a toll, and it was really difficult for both of us. I was happy to see him recently when I went to the UK. We had a beer and we had a nice catch up and talked about how scuffed the Switch 2 is. And while our friendship isn't as close as before, I'm really glad that we're on good terms, and despite the downfall of the project, we only have one life, and what you choose to use it with the time that you get is really up to you, so make sure you treasure it. Right, that was a bit heavy. I'm sorry that this devlog isn't really about the game itself. I promise the next one will, but I hope that some of this experience that I've shared gave you some insight so that you can avoid some of the pitfalls, whether it's your first collab or your 10th. Anyways, like if you liked the video, sub if you loved it, and I'll see you on the next devlog about the boat game updates. Bye.